problem. All right. So the three main areas we're going to talk about are direct instruction, social constructivism, and formative assessment. With the PSI, PMI, they are our main areas that I would say really stand out and are different than other teaching pedagogy. We will also talk a little bit about the grading philosophy of PSI, PMI. I know it's definitely different. Even through some of the assignments, I see people writing and they're like, but wait, retakes, they're not going to, do well on the first one. Or if you don't grade homework, they're not going to do it. So we can have conversations about that as well. Let's jump in here to direct instruction. When you are working through the direct instruction, you will be using an interactive whiteboard or the projector, smartboard. There's all different ones. I know some schools over here in the States, if they don't have the interactive whiteboards, even project onto a blank wall. So there's definitely different ways to use the material. All of our presentations that are prepared for you are in notebook and PDF. Susan, I believe now we also have PowerPoint all figured out as well, right?
Yeah, PowerPoint is there too.
I have to add that in here. We have PowerPoint as well. So 3 different ways to use the presentations. Student polling. I know a bunch of you have already reached that part in the methods course, but we can talk about polling options that goes under formative assessments. And the big part of direct instruction is the teacher is part of the social group. You join in with the class, not just standing up front lecturing. That's part of the assignment for that module is the difference between the PSI, PMI direct instruction and traditional lecture. For the traditional lecture, you're probably used to standing in front and just talking. The kids are taking notes. The students are writing constant. With the PSI, PMI, that's not the case. Our direct instruction is really short. Some of this we're gonna skip through. Some individuals have written about this in their assignments. The PSI, PMI is a lot like a flipped classroom, except they're not videos. But you are just teaching, it's brief, it's to the point, no more than 10 minutes of you talking, and then your instruction gets turned back over to the kids. I keep saying kids, sorry, I'm used to the little ones that I work with, to your students. And they become part of the teaching. They are now asking questions. They're coming to the board. They're joining in. They're having conversations with each other and teaching each other. So the goals here, we're just delivering the basic information to the kids. And then we're going to model, having them join in the problem solving. You're introducing new concepts. We are not looking for them to master the concepts just through your direct instruction. Your teacher talk time is so limited that we know they're not going to get everything, but then they go back and they work with their groups and they learn even more. We're expanding on their prior knowledge and providing insight on the challenging concepts. So here's just a few strategies. I know some of this is in the course. I just want to make sure we're feeling comfortable with it. The big part of our direct instruction is how limited the teacher talk time is. This is 5 to 7, no more than 10 minutes. I always think about I'm sure some of you right now sitting in this professional development, you get lost. Your mind starts to sidetrack. You have a million other things going on. And we have found the students are the same way. After 10 minutes, we're going to lose them. So you just want the main point of the direct instruction to be accomplished within 10 minutes. And then after that, they're going back out and they're working with their groups. They're doing problems with you. Maybe there's a short little video clip that you include. So we want to make sure that 75% of the class period, your students are working with each other. Only 25% is you talking and you're up there. If your courses are a little longer, it might not even be 25% because at 10 minutes, you're going to lose them. So you might do, if it's a long period, direct instruction for like 10 minutes, then they're back out working together, maybe pull them back in, give them a little more information and send them back. So just kind of remember that 25%, think of your class period, 25% of it is all that you should be talking. Another strategy is to really tie your own life experiences and the students' life experiences in. Let them share their stories. Let them talk with each other about how they've experienced this. What is their background information? Really letting them become part of the teaching instead of just listening. All right, that kind of goes back to, the limited, but this part down here, the students should not be taking notes as we typically think of traditional note taking. They shouldn't have paper and just writing the whole time. At the beginning of each unit, you're going to print out, or the teachers, when you're training them, they're going to print out the presentations for their students. Then the students can just write right on the presentation so that they're really focused on what the teacher's saying and not so worried about writing quick, making sure they have everything written down, copying off of the board. We want to, if possible, print that out for the students. This is a tough one. I know I even struggled with this strategy when I was teaching. It's okay that not everybody has the information that you taught during direct instruction. Even if 1/3 of the class knows they understood what you taught, they get it, then they're going to turn it back around and teach their peers. So you don't have to wait for every student in the class to know the material before moving on to social constructivism. So again, with our direct instruction, the main thing to remember is how brief it is. It's only 10 minutes. Later today, we'll look at one of our lessons and we'll look at the presentation, and you'll see our direct instruction in our presentations are always dark blue, and it's a short amount of time. So if nothing else from today, you remember for direct instruction, just keep it short. You don't want to talk a lot. Set yourself a timer if you need to make sure you're not talking. Big things are like pull videos in, have demonstrations. Labs are fantastic. Have an activity of some sort for the kids to do, the students to do, so that you're not standing there and talking. Before I move on to social constructivism, I thought we could open it up, see if anybody has any questions about direct instruction. Turn that off a minute and see, so I can see everyone too. Feel free just to unmute if you have a question. Put it in the chat room. There's the little raise hand too, if you want to do it that way.
There's a note in the chat window.
Okay.
It's saying that the key to understand is that the content is available to be accessed before and after class, not just the 10 minutes. So you were mentioning that teachers will usually print off the presentation for the students, so they will have that content for them. They don't need to just get it in the 10 minutes and then that's it, and they'll never see it again. And then
absolutely.
We have a hand raised. Shola, do you want to unmute? That was his comment, so maybe that was all.
Okay, that could be. And with that too, if they have access to the internet, the students can get onto the same website, the NJCTL website, and even access the presentations themselves. For the older grades, they are recorded, so they can listen to them as well. And we'll look, I'll make sure when we go onto the website, you see where all of that is so that you can pass that on.
Kristen, I just wanted to say there was a question about clickers. Somebody wants you to talk more about clickers when we get to the polling.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites. So be happy to share that one. All right, Susan, if you see anything else, just jump in.
Will do.
All right. So we're going to move on to social constructivism. So the breakdown of the class, whoop, it just jumped there, but that's okay. The breakdown of the class is we're going to have that direct instruction time. Short, brief, you're talking. And then we're moving into social constructivism. During this time, really even during your direct instruction, you want your classroom set up to be round tables, if they're in desks, you just push them together into little pods, grouping them together. We want to make sure that our groups are mixed. We want high students with low students, boys with girls, mix them up so that they can really interact with each other. When they're all on the same level, it's going to be hard for them to move along. Where if we make them all different levels, believe it or not, even the lower kids are going to help the higher students see things in a different way. The higher students are going to be able to relay that information that you just taught again back to their classmates. It's so hard to really stop and admit, but so many times they can teach each other better than we can teach them. The way they word it, for some reason, I feel like I could stand in front of my class and say something over and over, and some of the kids are still looking at me with these blank looks, and then their friend tells them the same thing, and it's like, I get it now. So we have found the students working together really does make a big difference. That peer teaching, sometimes you might call it peer tutoring, that they are really teaching each other. They're all a group working together. So for social constructivism, they're sitting in those round tables. I will tell you, your classroom will not be a quiet classroom. That is something, that may be a big change for some of the teachers out there, that they're used to lecturing. So they're standing there, the class is taking notes, it's quiet. And now this is totally different. They're working in groups, they're talking. I know there's some hesitation in the beginning of, oh, they're going to go off task. They're going to be talking about other things. They quickly learn that they need to be talking about school. As a teacher, the teacher is walking around during social constructivism time. They are joining in the groups. They are acting like another student in the room, sitting and talking. And the kids also pick up on that, so they'll stay more on track. So this is the teacher. They're providing problems for the kids to solve. Then they're facilitating them by setting the group expectations. Just like I said, we're not going off task. One person can't do all the talking. How are we
Kristen?
going to take turns? Yep.
Sorry, I wanted to interrupt because there is a really important point in the chat.
Okay.
It says, the class size in some of the public schools can be over 100 with one teacher to manage. How can the direct instruction model of getting 30% of the class to understand be effective here? And then retaking the test can be laborious on the part of the teacher, and the motivation of the teacher may be low because of low pay. How can we go about this? So I mean, I'll take a stab at answering this, and then I'll let Kristen throw her point in, and others please feel free to add some in the chat window. There's a note that the max for this program will be 60 students in a classroom. I taught in a district that had many, many kids, and many of them were below grade level, not 100, but 50, 55, 60 students in a class sometimes. And when you're doing this sort of instruction, the nice thing, I think, is that the teacher is not responsible for everything. So when you have that many students in a class, if you have 100 students in a class, a teacher cannot go around and teach each student who has misconceptions and who is struggling in a class of that size. So the PMI model actually is really helpful for that, because when the teacher stands at the front of the room, he or she does the direct instruction, 100% of the students will not understand it. So you're aiming for at least 30% of the students. And typically, I think that should happen, just because, about a third of the class you'll tend to understand at least. But what's nice is then when you get to the formative assessment questions and the students have to apply what they've learned in the direct instruction, now you have the students working in small groups. It's more small groups when you have 100 students. So if you have 5 kids in a group, you're not going to have 5 groups of kids. You're going to have 20 groups of students working together. But those students can help each other. You could not go around and help 20 groups of students, but the students working together can help each other. And then you don't have to stay at the front of the classroom during that time. You can circulate the room, or the teacher can circulate the room, walking around, listening for those groups that are really struggling, and then can hop in there. As far as retakes, one of the best things that I've heard of with retakes is teachers that teach the same subject or similar subjects teaming up together to offer retakes. So say, for instance, the teachers want to offer retakes during the lunch hour or before school or after school. If you have a few teachers, maybe 3 or 4 that teach math, they can offer retakes. One can offer retakes on Monday, one can offer on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday. And then any students who need to take the retake can come to the one teacher that day. That way, students have the option to retake tests every day, but the teacher only needs to be there. Each individual teacher just needs to be there once. As far as remuneration, I can't say anything about that. That's a common problem here in the United States too. Teachers are not paid well, and it's disheartening. So I understand that. Kristen, do you have other things to add?
For the retakes, I was going to pretty much say the same thing. Like, make sure you team up with your coworkers and really work as a team. Help out, even if they're not offered every single day. That's okay. If you decide on a schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, that is fine. In the beginning, you might see a lot more retakes because it's new, but little by little, the students also learn they don't want to do the retakes. Some people are like, oh, they're not going to put out the effort in the first one. Part of what we believe in is that in order for a student to do a retake, they need to show that they have done extra work to make sure they are ready for it. They might have to show extra homework problems that they completed. Did they attend a study hall session? So when they have to do the extra work, then they're also like, oh, maybe I don't want to do a retake. I'm going to make sure I try my best on the first one. So in the beginning, you might have a lot more retakes, but as it goes on, you'll see that kind of dies down. Definitely make it when it's convenient for you as a teacher. It's not necessarily on the kid's schedule. They can't come to you and just say, I want to take a retake today. So if one teacher, like Susan said, is covering retakes, they might have 30 kids in there doing a retake. And that's okay. Make sure it's convenient for you.
Kristen, that point about having them do something extra to prove they're ready for a retake is really important. Because that way you're not going to just get 100 kids coming in and saying, I want a retake, and then their test score is just as poor the second time as it was the first time. So they need to show that they're ready for the retake.
And from what I've seen in a lot of the assignments, it sounds like a lot of parents are pretty involved with their kids. Like a lot of the letters that I'm seeing a lot of you write involve the parents a lot. I've seen schools that parents have to sign off that their kid is ready for the retake. And that's part of it. And parents, can then be on top of their kids. It's really important to make sure that they're ready for the retake, and that they can't just retake 10 times without showing the work. We're going to talk a little more about the retakes later on too. As for the direct instruction of reaching, 30%, if you think about, you have 100 students, and like Susan said, now we're aiming for 30 of them to know the content. Those 30 are going to more or less become Your like team teachers, they're going to help you go back and teach all the other kids. And that's nice that, when you're lecturing and you're just standing in front of them, you really don't know who's getting it and who's not. And those that aren't getting it are pretty much just going to sit there the whole period. Where now, if it's 10 minutes that they might be lost, they didn't get it, but now they have a chance to go talk with their classmates. And it really does. I know it's hard in the beginning to wrap your head around this new style. I was the same way when I started teaching with PSI, PMI, but it really does work. It's amazing how much they can teach each other.
And as you're walking around, those groups we say should be kind of flexible and mixed groups. So as you're walking around, if you see a group who has every single student understands the concepts and they're able to answer the formative assessment questions very quickly, and you see another group where there are students who are really struggling, you can always right there ask some of the kids, maybe two of the kids from the group that's doing really well, just say something like, hey, I see that you all are really understanding this. There's another group who's, still kind of having a hard time getting it. I'd like to switch your groups up a little and take a couple of the kids from the ones who are doing really well and answering the questions quickly and switch them with with the kids from another group. So now you've taken two of those kids who understand the concepts and put them with a couple of the kids who are struggling. And as long as your language is kind and supportive, those kids who are having a hard time are not going to be upset. They're not going to feel bad. It's not like you're trying to call them out and make fun of them or make them look bad. You're just trying to support them. You're saying, hey, I can see that you guys are really having a hard time together. I'm going to just kind of make a quick switch. Don't make a big deal out of it. Make a quick switch so that you have a better, easier time answering the formative assessment questions. And typically, the kids who are struggling are going to appreciate it because they've just been fumbling and confused. And the ones who were doing really well are going to feel honored that they've been asked to go work with another group and offer some support.
And it is key to set this up from day one in the classrooms. The whole tone of the classroom, like Susan was saying, it's so important that they really understand the classroom is a team. Everybody is working together. Our goal is to help everyone succeed at the end of the day. There's no competition in the class of who's the smartest, who knows it and who doesn't. We're going to work as a team and help each other through it. And one day, your really bright student may need the help of another student, and it's going to flop. And like Susan said, change those groups up right on the spot. Hey, I was so-and-so, you're going to go join that group and you're going to come over here. Mix them up. Really, I want to say like from day one, I don't want to say a low key type of classroom, but kind of like I went into this meeting saying, I want it to be informal. I want us to all talk, really work together. That's how the classroom should be. I see lots of comments coming in about practice, practice, practice. Absolutely. Day one, set them up. One of the assignments in the methods course is, how are you going to introduce social constructivism to your class? Have a project for them to do. Is it easier to complete this by yourself, or is it easier to complete as a team? Get them from the first day to recognize, like, if we work together, it's going to go better. So practice, I agree with these comments. Practice, practice, practice. Day one is not going to be pretty. It's not going to be like, wow, this is fantastic. It's going to take some time to get the students used to this. It's going to be new for them, just like it's new for the teachers. Allow that grace period. As a teacher, give yourself the grace of it. I'm not going to do it right the first, 10 days, 15 days, and the kids aren't going to get it right the first couple of days. It's going to take some time, but in the end, it is worth that time. I'm just looking. Susan, did you see anything else in that chat? I didn't go back.
Nope, I think we can move forward.
Awesome. All right, let's hop back over here. All right, so we went through all that. A lot of this we just talked on about in the group. So the students, they're working on their formative assessment questions together. We'll talk a little bit more about that in formative assessment. That does not mean they are all answering the same answer. That also takes a lot of practice and time of getting them used to. Just because your friend next to you said the answer is B does not mean the answer is B. You still need to answer honestly for yourself. They are doing classwork together. They're doing labs together, building on the prior knowledge, bringing what they know from outside of the classroom back into their group. We talked about that peer teaching as well. I'll go through some of this a little quicker since we did talk more. Keep an eye on everyone involved. The instructor walking around the room and making sure everyone is participating. Again, if you see the quiet kid sitting there not participating, try them in another group. Another group might work. Move them around. We want to make sure the tasks that we are giving the students are appropriate. We want to keep them in that zone of proximal development where it's not too hard, it's not too easy, but it's challenging them enough that they need to work with their peers. If the assignment is super easy, then they don't need their peers to help them. If it's so hard that everybody is struggling in the group, they're all going to shut down because nobody can help each other. So it's finding that just right spot for them. We talked about that. Noise is normal. It's going to be loud, and that's okay as long as it's on task. Scaffolding, we start, and we'll look at this in one of our presentations, our formative assessment questions. They're lower level concepts, and then we build up to the more advanced problems. Rotate, Susan talked all about that. The other big thing with one of the assignments, it asks for what 3 strategies will you use to make sure the students are interacting with each other. You know, sometimes teachers like to do the ask 3, then me. Don't ask me a question until you've asked 3 peers. You know, maybe it's change a group. What are you going to do to make sure that they are interacting with each other and not just sitting there? Saw a comment just come in. Oh, okay. Susan, that one might be best for you.
We'll share the
You can
slides, I
remember.
think. Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions about social constructivism? Any comments? I know that's definitely going to be a new concept for a lot of classrooms.
The key challenge I've heard from people is that many people want to know how you are going to do your traditional class, meet learning objectives, and then engage the students in conversations among themselves and still keep within time. That's the real thing about this. Maybe a few comments on that may help.
One thing that I've seen many times in classrooms when I've been training and teachers are doing demonstration lessons, because what we will do is we will show how to do the lessons, and then we'll have the teachers during training come up and each present a topic so that they demonstrate. It's like a short way for them to demonstrate what it would look like in a classroom, and they get a chance to practice teaching the lesson. And then at the end, we do a debrief where we say what went well and some things that they might focus on in the future. And one thing that I could say about just timing and making sure that you get through a full lesson in the classroom is trusting the slides to do the work and going through the slides kind of quickly and not stopping and saying a lot about it. And that is one of the hardest things for teachers to do, is to just really kind of like read the slides. I mean, I know that sounds boring, but teachers have intonation and they'll they'll read with expression and they'll be excited, and they might paraphrase a little. They may not read the slides word for word, but oftentimes what I see, and this is what is time consuming. So here's the key, is that teachers will read a slide and then they'll start talking just off the cuff. They just start talking. It's like lecture time again. And then they'll go to the next slide and then they'll read the slide and then they'll talk some more. And oftentimes those things that they're saying, the talk that they're doing, is on the following slides. So if they read through the slides before in advance, they know what they're going to be saying. They just have to trust those slides and not talk for 5 minutes after they read every slide, because that's the problem. The problem isn't that the students take up too much time when they're talking in formative assessment questions. Really, the problem is that the teacher will not give up the control of the classroom, and then they talk and talk and talk and talk more than what's on the slides. So that's just from my experience.
Yeah, I agree with that, Susan. And I've seen it where, like you said, they talk and talk and then they flip to the next slide and they're like, oh, we just talked about this. Kind of like I just did with Susan when we went off the slides, and then I'm like, we covered all this. You do see that happen. Like Susan said, trust the slides. The information is definitely there. Maria, does that answer with the time consuming part? I'm assuming you meant the presentations can get time consuming for the lecture. I said lecture, for the direct instruction part of it. Happen, if not, Maria, and just let us know if there's more we can help, because we don't want you to feel that this is a huge time constraint for you either. All right, let's go back over. So now we're going to talk about formative assessment some. Formative assessment with the PSI PMI is done every single lesson. I know some people might feel like that's a lot, like, oh my gosh, how am I assessing every single day? And we're going to talk about the different polling devices, because they make it so easy. Like you said, there's 100 students in a class. You can get 100 answers in a minute and have that data that you know where to go with it. Our formative assessment is not meant to be a grade. We are not assessing them to say, okay, they're got a 30, they got a 40, they got an 80. It is really to drive our instruction. So we assess every day to be able to say, we're ready to move on. We need to go back and reteach. We need to stay right here for a little bit longer. So that is the main focus of formative assessment with the PSI PMI. With the formative assessment, all the students are engaged. They're thinking about it. They're answering their questions. We like this because a lot of times in formative assessment or in classrooms, you might ask a question at the end of a presentation. You know, you might have 1 or 2 students that answer. They're typically your louder students that know a lot of information that they're willing to share. But then you have those shy students that don't want to speak up. You have the students that are scared that their answer is wrong and they don't want others to know they're wrong. Our formative assessment, the polling devices, really helps with all of that. With the polling, like I said, it's all individual. This is my favorite part, is it's all anonymous. Using clickers, using Socrative, using the smart responders, they are all, or I guess they're smart VE now. They are all anonymous. We want the students to feel comfortable answering without worrying about what their peers are thinking about it. It also, when it's anonymous, it's important to teach them to answer honestly, because if somebody doesn't understand it, a lot of our formative assessments has a I need help button. That's one of their choices, and they can put that in. They may not be able to come up to you, and it's hard for you, even as an instructor, to have 100 students, 60 students. And what if 30 of them come up to you and you're trying to remember who said they need help? Well, now with the polling device, you have that data. They answered, I need help. and you can easily pick out which students need the help. You can also see from that data which students are ready to move on. When you're making your groups for the social constructivism, you can see which students really got it, and you're going to spread them out. It is a constant evaluating of their knowledge. Sometimes you might teach for weeks and then give an assessment and realize they really didn't understand the content. Well, we're not going to get that far. We're going to know every single lesson if they got it or if they didn't get it. And if they didn't get it, we're stopping in that moment and reteaching. We're not moving on in a week and then saying, oh my goodness, I need to go back and reteach for a week of knowledge. So with the formative assessment, what we have found, it's like a video game. I know over here in the United States, video games, everybody loves video games, right? They like to struggle, but they also like to win. And that's where we look at our formative assessment. Okay, if we don't challenge them, if they're not struggling, they get bored. But if they don't win, if they're not being successful, they're going to get frustrated and they might quit. They might be like, I'm done. So we have to find that balance, and our formative assessments in our presentation keep it in that level. Like I said, they start off lower level where they're winning, they're succeeding, they get a little more challenging as they go. We talked about a lot of this. You're getting so much feedback in such a short amount of time. The kids are more engaged by using the polling devices. They're not just sitting back. They now have to log in to a device. They might have to hold up their cards if it's clickers. They are now an active participant in this. So once you use a polling device, we have to say, okay, the students answered the formative assessment. What am I going to do with this information? Do I need to reteach it? Do I just need to review some? Or do I need to move on? If you have 60 kids in your class and 59 students got the right answer, you know, pretty much you're ready to move on. You have to work with that one student, touch base with them, but you're ready to move on. But if you see 50 of them got it wrong, you're going back and reteaching because something went wrong. They didn't get the information. Maybe if there's only 10 of them, we're going to do a quick review. After each formative assessment question, you will stop and talk about it. Even if let's say 50 out of 60 got it right, you're going to stop and say, oh, I see some people picked B. I see some students picked C. You know, why do we think somebody may have picked C? And turn it back to the students. Let them explain why they think somebody picked C. A lot of times it's funny to watch the students because they'll be like, oh, I think they might have picked C because, and explain. And they really picked C themselves. But now we're giving them an opportunity to explain their thinking without necessarily saying it was me. You know, we might say, oh, the answer was B, but can somebody explain how we got there? So there's questions built in. When you are done a formative assessment question, you don't just move on to the next. It goes back to that social constructivism and having a conversation. There is a video in the methods course showing that in action as well. And Susan, that might be something we can look into, is having one of our field experience videos. Maybe we can share where it's a lesson being taught.
Yeah, we have one that we've been given permission to share. So
that would be great then they can actually see it all in action. So just like social constructivism, one of the big strategies here is set it up from day one. Have a routine. Are the students logging in as soon as they walk in? Is there some kind of hardware if they're using a responder of some sort? If they have to pick up a Plickers card, have it readily available that they can grab it and move in. So we don't want formative assessment to take a long time. We don't want to get to the formative assessment part of the lesson, and then it takes 20 minutes for everyone to log in. So have it as a part of your routine as soon as they walk into the class. Some teachers like to start every lesson, every class with a response question. It could be a review from the day before. It might be one of the homework problems. It's a great way to see if the students did their homework and not worry so much about the grading of the homework. You know, it might be to see their knowledge on the content that you're going to teach that day. So you might want to start with one quick question. That could also be your hook in how you get them into the lesson. This is a hard one. I'm going to be honest. Teaching the students to answer honestly. We want them to know that the formative assessment questions are to help them as well. Excuse me. We want them to know they are not graded on this. There's no judgment on their answer, that their answers will help us as a teacher know where to go with our lessons. It really drives our instruction. We want them to know it's anonymous, like we talked about, not graded. It's going to give them feedback as well, not just the teacher, so they know what to practice and study. This is a hard one, and it does take time. Give it a little bit of grace in the beginning. Like we said, it's every single day, every lesson. You teach a new concept, they're getting a point. They are built into our presentation, all the formative assessments, so you do not have to worry about making these questions up. They are there for you. We've had experts in the fields writing these questions, so they are good. This is a little tricky, and it takes time as well. Know when to start the question, and also on that note, when to stop it. If you present one of the formative assessment questions, you want the students to talk a little bit in their group. Oh, I think it's this because, and they're sharing and they're talking. They're still going to answer independently, but they talk first, and then you want them to answer. Sometimes if you start a question, you show it on the board and you let them put their answers in right away, they're answering without even talking, without really thinking much about it. The same thing with stopping. Don't give these questions too much time. A couple minutes, 2 minutes max, and you're moving on. It should not take long. Well, while the students are answering, the teacher should be walking around the room. Encourage them to talk with each other. Ask a student what they're thinking. You don't want to give them answers, but it's kind of monitoring the room. And I know you have larger class sizes. That gets tricky to walk the whole room, but as much as you can, get in there with them. This is hard. I struggled with this one. Don't answer their questions during the problem. If you have a problem on the board and they start asking you questions about it, you can't, sometimes you might think you're helping, but you're really just giving them the answer, and then we're not getting a fair assessment on what they know. We talked about that, guiding the question. So this is an example. You'll see here like a pie graph. Some of the different polling devices will show you a graph at the end. And we're going to look at that graph. And we now know, right, 50% of the kids, I don't know, we'll say this was A, this was B, this was C. And we can quickly see where the students are. Okay, 50% of them got it. I probably want to go back and talk a little more. And like we said, the questioning, what is the first step in solving this? Why do you think they picked it? You know, how could we teach somebody? What would you tell them? Oh, we didn't line up the decimals. Why is that important? So it's conversations after the questions. We did a lot of this. All right. So Susan, we do have polling. Am I right with our Zoom?
Let me see. We should be able to. No, I need to create a poll real quick.
Oh, you know what? Don't worry about it, Susan. I just realized it's getting late. We could always come back. I want them to be able to say. I thought I could start one quickly, but we can come back. So these are just like examples, like what should we do if a student, you know, based on this chart, Should we reteach? Should we review? Should we move on? Are we not sure? I can say from looking at this, I would say we probably need to reteach. We have a lot of the students here that have all these different answers. So we want to talk about that. All right, I'll stop the screen share real quick, see if anyone has questions about the formative assessment part. Again, I know this is a lot of new information using formative assessment.
Can I contribute something?
Yes, please.
The key here is again access to some of internet where the equipment the teacher is using is able to communicate with the polling sheets that the students have. So we have to do some work on that to ensure that each classroom has at least a smartphone, and that the smartphone has data and the internet is good enough to get the information. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely multiple ways to poll with students. You can use the tech devices where the students, I mean, you could go where students have a one-to-one device, so they actually have their phone or they have a device and they can enter their answers using the device. But it works even in situations where, I mean, it's more fun for students that way. I think they really like to have devices. But it also just works in a situation where you have nothing. The students can hold up like A is 1 finger, B is 2 fingers, C is 3 fingers, and D is 4 fingers. This is not the best way to do it because it's not anonymous. The kids can see what other people are answering, and it's better when it's anonymous and each student maybe enters the answer into their own device and nobody else knows what they have to say. But it can work in a situation where you have absolutely nothing. You could do this in a situation where you don't even have electricity because the teacher could show the slides. I mean, obviously that's not the most ideal situation, but I just don't want to have anyone walk away thinking that unless you have all of the devices and internet connection and electricity and computers and projectors, that this won't work. It will take more planning, and it might take a little bit of creativity, but the key is not the technology necessarily. The key is that the teacher's not talking a lot. The teacher is quickly conveying the information to the students, and then the students are working together and talking and creating these mental models where they now understand the information and how to apply it. We have a hand raised. Elamine, would you like to unmute and go ahead and talk? You're currently muted. Perfect.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my question is in developing the assessment questions that you want to monitor the progress of students. Though I was late to join the meeting because we lacked electricity around for some time. So, but in the event that you are developing an assessment question, there is a way that it has to be done, and then when it is done in that manner, I think you also have the option to generate the right answer key, whereby after when students send in their responses, because the presenter, Christine, once he was presenting, there are times that you will see the color of the chart changes. If students send in the right question, if you develop it in the right way, like you provide the right answer keys, the chart will turn somehow light green, and those who didn't answer it rightly will turn to another color. And then also you have seen a situation whereby the progress of students will not be monitored on the teacher tools, response teacher tools. That is when you don't link the questions in the right way. So I would want you to make a bit of clarifications on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can tell you've used these in the classroom before. You have definitely used the smart responders and the presentations in a classroom. Yes. The point there is that when we develop presentations, so you will not need to create formative assessment questions if you use the presentations that we have posted in the Open Education Resources Library on the NJCTL website. The issue here is that if you were to develop, or if you were to create a formative assessment question, you do have the option as a writer to mark what is the right answer. And you do have the option to say that you're not going to indicate what is the right answer. And if you do indicate what is the right answer when you're writing the smart notebook, which I don't think any of you will do this, so it's kind of maybe a point that's a little off, but if you do have it marked, the correct answer marked, when the students, if they use smart notebook responders, they and you stop the question, they will see what is the correct answer. And that probably will never be the case for anybody who is sitting here, but it does connect to the point that you don't want to immediately tell the students what is the right answer. So if the correct answer is A and you've got 50% of your students answered A, you don't want to just say, good job, those of you who answered A, and move to the next question. So the point is not to confirm right away the right or wrong answer. The point is to have conversation. I see 10 of you answered B. What made you say B? And have some of those people answer. Maybe we had some people who answered C. Why might you answer C? Or why did you not answer C? Like having that conversation. And sometimes if you have maybe like only 20% of the kids answered the right answer, gave the correct answer, and 20% or well, 80% gave multiple wrong answers. After you have that conversation again, you might re-poll them. Okay, now we've had some conversation. You may want to change your answer. I'm going to start over. Let's ask this question again. And then hopefully you're going to see that maybe 50 or 70 or 80% now have the right answer. So it's all about having that conversation with the formative assessment question. It's not about asking the formative assessment question and saying, okay, you 20%, good job, you got it right. The rest of you, you know what, you need to try harder next time. Next question. That's not how you do it. So it's really, the point is to have learning happening because of the conversation you have. And the point here is, don't give them the right answer right away. You don't want to tell them right away what the right answer is.
Right. So if you do happen to create a question, I know sometimes we've had teachers that on the spot, they want to add another question in. Just make sure when you're making the question, you select like no answer. Susan, I lost my key for my smart response.
Yeah.
So I would show you right now, but there is an option where you do not have to pick the correct answer.
Yeah.
So never, if you create a question in Smart Notebook, just do not put the right answer. Do not select any answer.
Yeah, you just leave it blank. You leave it blank.
Leave it blank, and then they won't see any. It won't change colors to show them the right or the wrong in there. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about clickers and what they are and the pros and cons of clickers?
Yeah. So I already have a thing set up, but this is the Clickers website. It is just clickers.com. Susan, will you drop that in the chat window? I know it's in the methods course.
No problem.
Clickers, I feel, is one of the best options when there is limited internet, because with Clickers, all that you need is one phone, iPad, some kind of device that has a quick camera and is connected to the internet. I just hopped onto their website. I want to find, I thought there was a quick picture on here. And maybe it's because I'm already logged in here. So Plickers is a card that the students hold up. It's kind of like a QR code. It is a piece of paper. You print them out. They are free. You print out a class copy of these cards. Let's see if I click on here. There we go. So each page prints out 2 of them. You can make it that it prints 1. 2 is perfect. You cut these cards in half and each student gets half of a card. So they get one little code type thing. And you'll see on here up in this corner says number 3. The next one's going to say 4. In your free Plickers account, you can set up a class. And each student then has a number. Nobody knows each other's numbers. They know their own number, so they make sure they have their own card. Then when you ask them one of the formative assessment questions, you'll see real tiny on the side of the codes, there's A, B, C, and D. As you can imagine, when you print these out, those letters are hard to see for anyone except if you have the card right in front of you. So you ask the question. They talk in their groups. They are then going to hold their card up. And whatever they think the correct answer is goes at the top of their card. So looking at this card here, right, how it's positioned, this would mean D is the correct answer. They would hold D up high. If they thought it was A, they're just going to rotate their card so A is at the top. And then the students are holding it up in front of them. The teacher has a smart device, and there is a Plickers app. Again, all of Plickers is free, limited technology. They open the app and it's a camera. And it's amazing that you use the phone or whatever it is, and you quickly scan the room with the phone, and it collects everybody's data. I wish I should have like a quick little video of how this works, because it is so impressive to me. You will see like each card kind of lights up once it got the data. You can scan the whole room in 5 seconds. It gets all the information, it stores it into your Plickers account. So then you can go back and analyze the data. See who got it, who did not get it. I love them. I highly encourage you to try them with your students, pass them on to the teachers. As Susan said, I train pre-service teachers. I make all of them, when they're out doing their field experience, try them once. And they are so impressed that they're like, this was the easiest way for me to get all this data on the kids without taking long. There's no papers to mark at the end. Over here in the States, a lot of teachers, even in high school level, they're using what's called exit tickets as a formative assessment. It's like a question at the end of the class. The kids fill in a worksheet. The problem is then the teacher has to mark all of those. They have to go through them. Plickers is doing the work for us. It's telling us who got it right, who got it wrong in a quick snapshot. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to go out and look at them. There's all kinds of videos. If you could get on YouTube, put Plickers in there, it will show you them in action. There's also Socrative, which has a free version, requires the students to have one-on-one devices. The Smart VE is an awesome polling option. However, with Smart PE or VE, again, they need one-to-one devices. If they have one-to-one devices, I think Smart VE is one of the best options because it's all tied in right with the Smart Notebook presentations. We have the whole module in the Teaching Methods course on the different polling devices. For that assignment, it asks you to stop and think, like, which one would you like to use? Why do you think you want to use that? Write a note to the students and the parents explaining it, because this is going to be another new thing for them to get used to. I promise you it's super easy for the students. I actually taught preschool for a little bit, and my preschoolers were using the polling devices, and it took no time. It's a learning curve, but definitely well worth it. Any question on the polling devices? I feel like I could spend all day talking about the different polling options out there.
We also have a presentation kind of like this. It was a technical assistance that we did just about polling for some trainers in Malawi. And I have that video I'll send to you. And then if you're interested more, because that was just focused on polling devices. So I'll send out, we can send out the presentation from today, the recording from today, and then I'll also just send that recording so that you can look at it if you're interested.
Wonderful. All right, let's hop back over here. The last section, and again, I know this is a new way of teaching for a lot of individuals. And the PSI PMI, we only grade our summative assessments, quizzes, tests, labs. It is only what you see the students doing in front of you. We don't know if we grade their homework. We don't know who did their homework for them. Over here in the States, we have parents doing homework for their students. Even in first grade, I had kids coming in and it was their parents' handwriting on their entire homework. And it's like, well, how am I going to give you 100 on your homework when you didn't even do it? We do not grade participation and attendance because then their grade's not really reflecting their knowledge of the material that we taught. We do not give extra credit. They can retake their assessments if they need to, but we don't just give extra credit. Like I said, I jumped there on us. By grading only the summative assessments, their grades truly reflect what they know. They are going to align better with the final assessment that they take. If it's their state, over here in the States, we do like a grade level state required test at the end of each grade. We want to make sure, I know you guys offer the same, the end of course test. We want their final grade to reflect what they know. And sometimes when we start grading homework and participation and classwork, they may be getting these awesome grades, but then it goes for them to really show what they know at the end of the course, and they bomb it. It's such a bad grade. And you're like, how did they get there? Well, it's because all those little extra assignments brought their grades up. So by grading only summative assessment, we truly know what the students are capable of. We said, see, Susan, I'm doing what we said, trust in the slides here. So for the retakes, I can tell from a lot of the assignments, there's a lot of hesitation about the retakes, a lot of that being the time constraint of the retake. First, I want you to know the PSI PMI provides retakes for you. You do not need to create another test. All of our tests are provided, the assessments are on the website, and there's retakes provided as well for all of the tests and the quizzes. You do not need to create them again. For administering the retakes, like we talked about earlier, use your colleagues to help you with the retakes. The retakes are provided at a time that is convenient for you as the instructor. They have to show that they have done the work to be able to do a retake. If they didn't study more, if they didn't put the work in, then we're not giving them a retake. They have to show you that. So it is their responsibility to show the work and schedule with you that at a time that is convenient. As a teacher, our main responsibility is to make sure that the students know the information we are teaching. Our main job is not just to give them a pass-fail grade. Did they pass? Did they fail? That's not our job. Unfortunately, our world has gone to that a lot of, okay, you failed, move on. We are taking a step back and we're saying, well, if you failed that test, then we need to work some more. We need to learn at it. It doesn't matter how long it takes a student to learn the information. The most important thing is that they know the information. We think, on here it says about kids tying a shoe, right? If you fail once, We don't say they're done. We don't give them extra credit. We tell them they have to keep practicing, right? And showing them. The same thing if you're teaching someone to learn how to ride a bike. We don't give them one chance to learn. We say, go back out, try again. You failed and we're going to practice it. We're going to do it again. If they're taking a driver's test and they fail the first time, they can try again. They can go out and practice and then go back and retake their test. We believe in schools, it should be the same way. If they did not learn the information the first time, we can't just leave them with this gap in their education. It is our responsibility as educators to reteach and give them extra work to practice and then retake the test. We keep the highest grade for a retake. This is because that's what they know, right? Like we're not saying, well, you failed the first time and now you did well, so we'll meet you in the middle. No, their grade should reflect what they know. And if they got a 90 now, then they deserve the 90. Trying to think with the retakes, any other main thing with it. One thing I keep seeing in a lot of the assignments is, okay, fine, I'll give them one chance to retake. Our philosophy is if it takes them 3 times of going back and practicing, reteaching, maybe they get a peer tutor after school, whatever it takes and however long it takes them is okay. As long as we are seeing them work towards the goal. If they're not trying, then that's a different story. But as long as they are working to learn the information, we're going to keep assessing so we know if they got it or not. I know that's been some hesitation in the assignment. So any questions with that? Feel free to share your worries, your stress with it.
Hello, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. In a session where some students don't need to retake if they perform well when a concept is taught. And for those that do not do well in the classroom and need to retake, what happens to those who did well and do not need to retake? Do you keep them aside or do you continue to teach them?
That's a great question. So through the test, we're still going to move on. We're not going to hold the whole class up if it's a few students that didn't do well. If it's your 95% of the class didn't do well, then we're going to reteach. But as long as it's just those handfuls of kids that didn't get it, it is their responsibility to practice, get the peer tutor, work after your class hours. So if it's after school, if it's during their lunch break, study hall, the retakes are not given during your class period. They are to be given after school, during lunch, if you have a study hall type of period. They are at a time that's convenient for you. The rest of the class is not held up for the student that still needs to learn the other information. Anything, Susan, you want to chime in there?
Nope.
Okay. All right, let's go back. All right, so
Hello.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I just want to. I have an observation about this assessment, formative assessment and summative assessment. If I heard you well, you belongs to the school of thought that says that formative assessment should not be graded. I also cited series of current studies that their line of argument was the formative assessment should be graded because they look at the issues where students come together to be in groups, work together, and after they discuss the problem, then they use their respondents to set their answers. One of the advantages that we talk about the clickers is it monitors the student engagement, including the student participation. So these schools of thought, the current researchers now, they suggest that if the students' engagements are monitored, their participation is monitored, so they need to be recognized. So, if they respond to the formative questions at the end of the term, then you can recognize their participation. So it's left to you as a teacher to see what sort of marks that I can give you to students, because at the end of the formative assessment, not all students can attain to the pass grade. So you can see whether that particular student is participating in the class discussion. Like how many percent you as a teacher, you have to allocate that one. Then if you understand that one, then you can give some recognition to those who are still lacking behind. That is their line of argument. I think I read about 10 current publications about that, about this formative assessment. And they are all, protesting that at least a teacher should recognize during the formative assessment, because every concept you have every concept is interpassed with the in-class questions, and those in-class questions are being assessed using the clickers. So their identity was there, their names were recorded, and their performance also recorded. So you as a teacher, you can see at the end of the term, then you can collect those data and at least consider their effort. Then you wait till only the summative assessment, you grade them. So you can, at some point, you can discourage them, because if they know at the beginning of the lesson that this formative assessment, I'm just wasting my time, I'm not going to be graded. So they can, they can feel reluctant. That is their point of argument. They can feel reluctant not to participate. So the best student among them will take the lead, will control the group discussion. So the others, they may feel shy to participate, because they said, every day I'm not going to be graded, so it doesn't make sense for me to participate in the group work. So they will just be relaxed. So they will only rely on what the other students say, and they also use that answer to send in. That is their line of argument. I have a lot of abstract about that one. Thank you.
I hear what
So
you're
thank you
saying. Sorry, did you want to respond?
No, go ahead, Susan.
I hear what you're saying, that your concern is that if they're not graded on the formative assessment, only the students who get it quickly will dominate the conversation, and then students won't participate because they don't have to. I would counter, my feeling is that if you are only grading summative assessment, I think that the students need to be made to understand, or helped to understand, that everything you do is helping to prepare you for the summative assessment. And if you don't do formative assessment questions, and if you don't do homework, you won't be prepared for the summative assessment that is given at the end of the unit or the quizzes. So in my feeling is that I teach the students that formative assessment and homework are good times for you to try to understand the concept. You're not going to be penalized if you don't get it right away. This is your time to learn. But then if you've done all of that, you're going to be better prepared for the summative assessment. I did a study, this was informal with my class, one year, where I looked at their report card grades, and I looked at the percentage of students who were turning in homework. And I found that my students who were not, and I did not grade homework, so that did not figure into their grade. But I did see that my students who were not doing homework were more likely to be failing my class. And the students who were doing their homework were more likely to have A's and B's, higher marks in the class, even though the homework was not part of the grade. So for me, that was like a really, and I charted it on a quadrant chart. So I looked at students with high marks and high returning of homework, and I charted them as a plot. I plotted them on the upper right quadrant. And then I did students with high grades that did not turn in their homework, and I plotted them on the upper left quadrant. And then students who did their homework and had low grades on their report cards, I put them on the lower left, or I'm sorry, the lower right. And then students who had low grades and low homework participation, I put on the lower left. And then I had like a really good trend line. It went from bottom left to upper right. And my students saw that. And I will tell you, I got a lot more homework participation the following semester because they saw, hey, if I just do my homework, it's almost like magically going to help me improve my grade, even though my homework's not graded. So it's just about having those conversations with students. They have to understand that just because it's not graded doesn't mean it's not important. Same with formative assessment questions.
And it is, like Susan said, it's a lot of conversations with the students, getting them on board with these philosophies and talk to them about real life, right? Like practice is going to make progress. And the more you practice, you're going to get better grades in the end. All right, let's go back over here to the presentation. So I'm actually going to just go right over because we can look at it all together to the website. So all teaching materials can be found on the NJCTL.org website. Everybody is already registered since you are in the courses. If you logged out, you just have to sign back in. Sometimes it does log you out on its own, even if you hit save, which is fine. Just log right back in. The teaching materials up at the top, you can see it says teaching materials. Remember, everything that the Center for Teaching and Learning, PSI, PMI, is free, and you can edit it to meet your needs. Let's just go in. You'll see all the different courses that we offer. Just going to go into math. I'm just going to pick whatever's at the top because they are all set up the exact same way. So you'll see here the different units of study. If you kind of scroll over them, it does show you what topics will be covered. I'm going to click View to go into this unit. Down here, you will see all the different resources that we offer. We have presentations. Under the teacher's resource, we will find the unit plan. We'll look at it, classwork and homework, labs, and the assessments. If I click on the presentation, click on again. Here are all the different presentation formats that we have. Like we talked about earlier, we have Smart Notebook, we have PowerPoint, and then we have the PDF. A lot of our slides will have, I shouldn't say a lot, some of them have little, all of them. The formative assessment answers are over on the side on a pool tab. In Smart Notebook, you just pull the whole slide, like that little tab over, and you can see the correct answer. So for the PDF, it is not interactive like the notebook or the PowerPoint would be. So the second PDF has all those little pull tabs with the teacher notes pulled out so that you can read them. I'm just going to open Smart Notebook. So I'm going to click right on it. It's downloading. You will see a date over on the side. This is the last time the presentation was updated. The nice thing with all of our teaching materials, we can update them on the spot and repost them, and you will instantly have the updated version. If you click on the little drop-down arrow, you can see all the other dates. So for some reason, if you are teaching, let's say you downloaded the materials, we'll go here, like on September 1st of 21. Well, you'll see we have newer versions. It is really important to always make sure you are teaching with the newest version. Whenever you start a unit, you want to download the presentation and then save it so that you have that same presentation you're working through with the whole course for that whole unit. So after every single day that you teach, you're going to hit save. So if you made notes on the presentation, you have them saved to reopen. Sometimes the internet might go down. We all know that. If you have the presentation saved on your computer, then you can just open it and you don't have to worry about the internet. Once you download it, it's right on your device. This is just our title. Again, you'll see the new date is always on the presentations as well, in case there's any confusion. Table of contents just tells you what you're teaching. You can click right on the title and it will bring you to that lesson. I mentioned earlier about the dark blue font. You'll see this is all blue font. So this is a lesson. These are your direct instruction slides. When it changes to the black font, now we are in the formative assessment questions. You'll see the I need help like we talked about. So if there is a student that is really lost, they're going to hold C up on their clicker cards or enter C into whatever polling device they're using. And then you as an instructor know who needs a little extra work. The answer is on the side. All that I did was click and pull it out, and you can see the answer. We do not recommend you pull that answer out until the discussions are done after you reviewed the question. I want to go back up. You will see on the title page for the lesson, the QR code down the bottom. I mentioned earlier that our lessons are recorded. So if you have a student that isn't getting the lesson, if you have a student that missed it, they can go back and watch a recording of the same lesson by a certified teacher. So it is somebody that knows what they are doing as well. Sometimes, kids go out on YouTube, you don't know what you're going to get. We promise you these are certified teachers teaching the content. They can use their phone and scan it. I believe, Susan, is the link built right in? It's not.
No, you just click on the little link down below, like click on the,
You know what? It's probably covered because of
oh,
my,
yeah, it is. There's like,
there it is.
those, yeah, yep, you just click.
Yeah. And it will bring you, New Jersey Center for Teaching and Learning has their own YouTube channel. So all of our presentations are there. This one's built right into our site. And they can just play and listen to the presentation again. So if you have a kid that needs to retake an assessment, well, they can go back in and listen to the presentation right here. You don't have to do the extra work. It's there for you.
Kristen, I'm
Great,
sorry,
go.
I want to just bring us back to time. We only have about 1 more minute, and maybe we could stay on for questions, but we should try and wrap.
Yep, that sounds good. So main thing with our presentations when you're looking through, dark blue font is direct instruction. Black font is our formative assessment. You will see all the formative assessments. They're right there for you. You don't have to create them at all. I just want to show you real quick. I know we're over time. If I go back to the website, down here, classwork, homework, there are the worksheets, labs, directions are there. The assessments are where you will find the quizzes and the unit test. The retest and the requizzes are right in the same document. So when you open it, you can open it as Word or PDF. If you open it as Word, you can edit it to make it fit your needs as well. Go explore the website. There's so much on there that you can use. My email, I'm gonna put it in the chat. It's just kristen@njctl.org. Please email me with any questions, if it's about the website, about something in methods, if you're having a hard time with an assignment, if there's a link in methods that won't work. Please feel free to just email me directly. Let's turn it to any questions about anything at all from today. I know a lot of information was thrown at you in a short amount of time, so feel free, ask any questions.
And for anyone who is feeling confident and you're ready, and you don't have questions, please, I know it's 10:30 or well, it's 3:30. So if you need to leave, go ahead. But we will stay in for questions. And feel free to put questions in the chat window or just to unmute yourself and ask.
For those of you logging off, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
go ahead, please.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You know, the other time, one of the participants here said something that he read so much about this formative assessment. You have told us here that formative assessment, you don't need to grade, but to prepare the students for the final assessment during which is the summative assessment. But you see, for me, I believe that formative assessment is meant to give feedback to the students. You know, it's meant to give feedback to the students about whether the learning the concept or not.
Yeah.
It's meant to give feedback to the teacher whether the instructional process is in order, whether the objectives are being achieved. You know, the set objectives for the learning or for the teaching has been achieved. And still saying that we don't need to grade formative assessment because many school of thought have the view that grading in formative assessment will give feedback to the students. And for me, I feel that even if you grade the students, it's going to help them. It's still going to achieve the same purpose, and that is to help them to know their areas of strength and weaknesses where they need to improve upon. So I don't know now, because these are the school of thoughts that you brought forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. Formative assessment, the point of formative assessment, as you said, is to help the teacher basically form an opinion about or form an understanding about where the students are. And it's also to help the students form an understanding of where they are. So whether they get a grade or they don't get a grade, the students still get the feedback. So when you're doing, I guess maybe we skipped over that eventually, yes, you do confirm the correct answer to the formative assessment question. So while we said that you don't immediately give them the answer, it's about the conversation. After that conversation, you do tell them what is the correct answer. So they know I got it right or I got it wrong. And then they still, at the end of the day, they're going to know, oh, well, I got 6 of the 7 formative assessment questions right. So I'm doing pretty well.
That's
right. Yeah. Or I got 6 of the 7 wrong. So I really need to ask for some help of my teacher, or I need to.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're right. Formative assessment, just exactly. And somebody just put in the chat window, it helps the teacher adjust the direct instruction. So it helps the teacher understand, did my students understand this? And if not, you can make adjustments. The grade doesn't necessarily do that. It's really about, forming the understanding of where your students are. And I would say by not grading, it actually lets the students take more risk, because some students would just answer what their neighbor answered because they think their neighbor's going to get it right. And they're concerned that their grade will go down if they answer truthfully. So by not grading, you get to see students' truthful answers, and then you can actually address the misconceptions that you see because they've been truthful.
Susan, I was going to say that same thing. Like, there's less pressure on them to get it right and to really just think it out and answer to the best of their ability versus asking their neighbor what they think it is and writing that answer down. You get more honesty when it's not graded.
Okay.
And we do recognize that it is a new teaching style for a lot of individuals. The retakes and not grading, homework, formative assessments, it's new. And it does take some time, but once you are in the classroom using it, it all starts to make a lot more sense and you realize how well it does work.
What other questions do you have or things that you want to point out?
Does anyone have any questions even on the assignments that they have been doing in the methods course? Are you stuck on anything? I see the message. Yes, definitely encouraging everyone, please embrace this new teaching style. I agree. It is wonderful. Once you get used to it and you're in there using it, it's incredible. And I will admit, it took me a little time when my school district switched over. I'm like, wait, I don't give them a grade for homework, but then they're not going to do homework. But that wasn't the case. They do. The students really buy into it as well, and they start to recognize. So embrace it. It's new, but it's awesome. Is there anybody that's still on that has been using any of the PSI, PMI material that you would like to share your experience with some of the new trainers on the call?
Hello,
Yeah, hello.
everyone.
Hi.
Okay. Can I make a contribution? This is Shola.
Sure.
Yes. So, I just wanted to share that lots of us are going to experience new things. And this is a process that involves certain changes have to be made in the policy assessments and also in some of the allotment. There's an ongoing engagement for this, and we are hopeful, and we have reason to be hopeful. That has assured us that for these classrooms, there will be special classes, and they will not exceed 60. He's actually targeting to have 50 children per class. He will expand the number of classes per arm in order to achieve that. And we are constantly dialoguing, about some issues that need to be addressed. While all of this is going, please keep the questions coming, because these are the things that reinforce our belief that we need to make some changes. And it's those changes that is going to make this system work. So all hands on deck, keep pushing. But the most important thing is you yourself must be self-selected that there is something wrong with the system that is currently being used, and that adopting a new system would improve what we have. If you are committed to make that improvement, then we are going to make all the adjustments possible. That I can assure you at the highest levels of Ministry of Education, they've assured us that. And I just want to share that, we have noticed certain things, but all the things you have noticed, please bring them on board so that we can openly discuss them.
Shola, you're breaking up a little bit. We heard you loud and
It's
clear.
important. Let's dialogue.
Oh, there we go.
Everybody has an opinion, but at the end of the day, we have to grind everything together in order to create something workable. So I just felt I should share that.
Thank you. You broke up a little bit, but I think we got the gist of your point.
Yes, thank you for sharing. It's
Oh, that
good
I
point.
can't do better. But please try and do you understand?
Yeah, we understood. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, so this is Buba Samba from the Gambia.
Hi there. It's good to see
It's
you.
good to see you, Susan.
Yes,
It's been some time.
it has been. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so my comment actually has to do with, first though, I want to thank you, the presenters, for a wonderful presentation. I'll be very quick to my point because my internet is not very okay. It goes on and off. And so, yeah, so my point basically is about the alignment, because with the Gambia experience, since the introduction of PSI-PMI in 2012 in the Gambia, I think we actually put the cart before, we put the horse before the cart. Yeah, so without first going through the alignment, and then we later did the alignment, we later realized that there are gaps and we needed to do the alignment. So I was wondering if the same thing would happen with the Nigeria experience. Because in the Gambia, when we first started, topics like, for example, in physics, we realized topics like dimensional analysis were not available, were not actually on the NJCTM curriculum, NJCTL rather. In mathematics, we realized, and also the mathematical representation of waves were also not there, echoes and reverberation, and many other topics were not also there. So we thought it nice, and these are topics that are actually captured in the Gambian curriculum. So we thought it nice that and wise to revise, the relationship. So we had to invite NJCTL and we had to do the curriculum alignment with them. So I don't know if that is what is going to happen with the Nigerian case, or we want to know what is the standpoint right now, or whether during the training we are going to start first with the alignment or review of the Nigerian curriculum. Host AUST, Ogun State. Sorry, whether we are going to review it first and then with the alignment, or we are going to go straight into the teaching.
That's a great question. That's a great question. And you're right, the Gambia, the curriculum alignment happened after the fact. Here in Ogun State, the curriculum alignment is happening. It began last December. They sent us the syllabi for Ogun State last December because we've been preparing for this project for some time. So we took a close look at what existed already. And in working in the Gambia, working in Lesotho, working in other countries in Africa, we've had a chance to develop, working in Malawi, that was a big one. We developed a lot of biology curriculum that didn't exist yet. So we now have more of what is needed, and we are continuing to write between now and end of December what is necessary. So the curriculum alignment is happening before and now. So the curriculum alignment will be happening on an ongoing basis. We have a team of 12 curriculum reviewers or curriculum experts from Ogun State who are reviewing. First, they've reviewed to be sure that we understand what needs to be taught. Today, we'll be submitting spreadsheets that show where the first half of the content is taught. And they'll be reviewing that just to be sure that indeed the content that we say is being taught is actually taught in those presentations. And then that will allow us to open up the first content course for the facilitators next week. And then between now and December, we'll be working closely with that team of curriculum reviewers who will be looking at all of the materials and making sure that we're teaching what needs to be taught for Ogun State. That being said, we agreed that the content alignment would be at least 80%. So there may be small gaps that it doesn't make sense to write a whole presentation or develop an entire unit to teach one small thing. And we'll work with those curriculum reviewers to determine where that might be the case. For instance, one thing that we've already agreed upon is that for ICT, instead of teaching students to program in the programming language BASIC, because nobody uses that anymore, we're going to use Python. That was an agreement we made before the, as we were writing the contract. So we are actively working on curriculum alignment. We've been working on it for almost a year, and we'll continue to work on that as we go through.
Before we log off for the day, just also want to mention, I've gotten a couple emails about assignments being graded. Please just hang in there. I know they are taking a little bit longer than I typically like. We just have a lot of assignments coming in at once. Sometimes an assignment that you submitted after another one might be graded first. If I have a ton of all of one module, I just go through them all at once. So just hang in there with grading. We are getting them turned around as fast as possible. But if you have a question, if you see something, please email me. But do know that we are getting the assignments and trying to get them graded and back to you as soon as possible.
Well, thank you everybody for joining. As questions arise, as Kristen said, please reach out by email and we'll send the presentation and recording from today out to everybody.
Thank you so much. It was so great to see so many people join in.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Christine and Susan. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.